Now, before long, we're going to have Godspeed special contributor Shater. She was one of my Army friends in Germany, out living in Hopkinsville, and this is where we're getting crazy weather in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. You can see the massive flooding that they have had in the last several days here, which was followed up by a fresh coat of snowfall. And this is weather that Kentucky is not accustomed to seeing out there, especially in this area. And this is right at the Kentucky-Tennessee border. And you can see the water levels. They're up to swimming pools, they're up to vehicles. You'll see that here in a little bit. And in the ensuing vehicle, you're going to see the problems that vehicles are having tonight as I'm doing this video right now at a town just outside of Hopkinsville on the freeway. But this is real close to the Army post of Fort Campbell, right on that Kentucky-Tennessee border. And Shater and her husband, they have been living out there for 3 years now, and they've never seen anything like this. And is the weather engineered? Well, yes, we know it is, but was this weather event engineered? Well, this was a historic polar vortex that we're not used to seeing come down from the North Pole this late in February. I mean, we're almost looking at March now. Of course, it's not unheard of to get snowfall, even this far south, but average temperatures are in the mid to upper 50s for this part of Kentucky this time of year.
Give it hell, dude. Give it some rain.
Get the best seat in the house, don't we?
It's crazy. I never, if you had this would be the place you bring your chairs and
Some beer.
and a canopy and just hang out.
And what's worse is the power just went out in Hopkinsville, all over the west side of the town and the neighboring town of Cadiz. Now check this out. We've got much of the same going on in Detroit, Michigan from this polar vortex, where the same water levels came and flooded everything out. You can see the water all the way up to the vehicles, and then it flash froze. The whole mess of water froze. I've never seen that much water just instantly flash freeze like that. I know water could flash freeze, but I didn't know it could be that much. We've got a lot to talk about in this video, so let's get on with topic number one. Hey everybody, so let's talk about people getting sick, drones, and plane crashes. So people getting sick, it's been going around a lot. You guys already know this. Pretty much seems like every state, lots of workplaces around the country, lots of families are getting sick. I know my family back in Indiana has gotten sick with 2 of the 6 people. A lot of my coworkers have been getting sick, and I guess it's influenza type A, type B, coronavirus, and I think there's another one going around. Even where we live, we've had one of our friends visiting, and she had heart troubles with coronavirus that she picked up, at least she thinks. So we had to call the ambulance, and it's not, I mean, her vitals checked out fine, but she's got the shakes real bad, and she's having a hard time breathing, and she thinks it's from coronavirus. You may see her on the channel. She has a story of her own to tell for one of our segments, so stay tuned for that. And keep her in your prayers. Her name is Kayla. Hopefully she'll be okay. One thing that's important to know is that I found an article from back where I grew up on the Indiana-Ohio line of avian influenza, or bird flu. Okay, so this was an official health site out of the state of Ohio. It says it reports the first human case of bird flu February 12th, and this came out of Mercer County, Ohio. That's the county that I was born in. And it's saying that it came from basically a farmer who had poultry that was infected with avian influenza. Now, the farmers are coming out and saying that the drones are spraying their poultry with bird flu. And we've also had a mysterious fog come up lately. Again, we had it come out in Christmas time, and now it's coming up again. People are saying in the last several days that this mysterious fog is coming out. So could it be from what the drones are doing? I don't know, but it's hard to say. There are some guidelines that this article talks about and how to avoid avian influenza, just basically avoiding contact with the infected poultry and rodents and making sure your water is sourced correctly, like from a well or whatever. But it says down here, the first outbreak began in 2022. That's what I've been talking about in this video. So this is all on repeat again. And you're seeing it, and I'm going to talk more about it. My family, like I said, they got sick. I don't think they got bird flu. I know my parents, they have peacocks and stuff, and they did notice that they got sick last year. But the big thing over there that's not being reported in the news, at least not heavily, is that the drones are being reported by farmers out there as spraying bird flu. And a lot of the farmers out there in Indiana, the government's coming, and they are basically doing what happened in 2022, where the birds are being put down. It's just a couple birds in the whole barn that are sick, and they're saying it's avian influenza. In 2022, if you guys remember, they would come out and say it was coronavirus, and maybe avian influenza, bird flu, I don't know, but a lot of times they were saying it was coronavirus, and just a couple birds would get it, and they'd put the whole barn down. And back then, if you guys remember, it was the summer of 2022. It would be several different states. They were like Kansas, Iowa, definitely Iowa, Missouri, and then you'd have some eastern states like Vermont, surprisingly, had a lot of barns where they had to put a lot of birds down, supposedly. But that was the rule, was if just one or two had it, they would wipe out the entire population. Well, we know why they did that. I reported on it 2.5 years ago when I was living in Florida. It was to keep people from their food sources, basically. I mean, the whole poultry livestock is being wiped out and people aren't even eating them. So it's to starve us out. And that was also when Bill Gates was buying up all the farmland. Remember that? That was two years ago, 2.5 years ago in the summer of 2022. So, you know, he's still buying up farmland. He's still releasing mosquitoes through that company in the United Kingdom that have been released in Key West, Florida. I believe Naples, Florida was the secondary Florida location. And then I think it was Los Angeles or San Diego. I can't remember, but it was somewhere in California. And that was back then, 2.5 years ago. They were releasing these mosquitoes where only the females could bite you, obviously, because that's how mosquitoes do. The males don't bite, it's the females that do. But you could see a serial number on them, and they were infecting people with stuff. So the big thing right now is bird flu is going like crazy in Indiana and Ohio, and the farmers out there are literally seeing these big drones. Probably the same drones that we've been seeing in New Jersey and many other states are now being seen in Indiana and Ohio, and those farmers are saying they're scared to death. They're saying that they're spraying their birds with bird flu. And not a lot of people are talking about this. The only reason I really know about it is because my parents are talking with their neighbors, and they're in close proximal distance of this happening, and they're saying it's happening out there. So one of the Amish, I guess they tried it to them, where a government employee went into the barn and poked their heads in, and they're saying that these government workers, whoever they are just poking their head in, and they're not looking very long, and they're like, yep, you've got a couple birds that have it, you need to put your entire livestock down. And I guess the Amish person, they tried it with them, and they said, you're not doing this to us. They said, this is ridiculous, and it stops right here. And I don't understand why more people aren't doing it. I think they're scared because they're levying fines on these people, and they're going to tax them to oblivion if they don't listen. But hey man, it starts and stops with the people, and you know, we outnumber them, so you got to start doing what you think is right. But it's just crazy. So you've got that going on. Now let's talk about the plane crashes, and I've got a couple I'd like to highlight back from 2022 when this was big in the news. Right now, I think there's a concerted movement going on to try to keep people from flying because they want to ground people to living in 15-minute cities. And there's a big push for that. Well, that's already happening in other countries. They've already got 15-minute cities out there in the higher densely populated countries. It's coming, whether we want it or not, but I think that's a lot of the reason why they're trying to scare people out of flying, because they don't want them to travel quite as much. But we all know that with all these plane accidents, they're not accidents, they're sabotages. They're controlled events. Well, in 2022, you're going to see that this happened back then, and it's just on repeat. We didn't think it was quite as big back then, but it really was. It just wasn't quite as publicized as what it is this year in 2025. Wednesday sure does seem to come up a lot with these plane crashes over the years. Back on Wednesday, April 13th of 2022, accomplished 30-year-old pilot Brittany Infinger, son of another accomplished pilot, crashed her single-engine Cessna airplane into a smokestack of the Gem potato processing plant in Burley, Idaho, not a half a mile from where she was going to land the plane. Another ironic thing in this case is the rivers. These planes always seem to crash around a river. Why is that? A river right next to where the airport is. Some are at takeoff, and others are right about to land. And I'm going to get into a couple of these cases back in 2022 for you. So for years, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, had mandated that the Gem State Processing Plant in Hayburn, Idaho, alternate the coloring of their smokestacks by painting every other one a fluorescent orange so that pilots could see it coming into the airport there in Burley. But it never happened. And as a result, Infinger got caught up in a cloud of steam and apparently didn't see one of the smokestacks, but it seems like she was in a nosedive before she even hit one of the smokestacks, and that's where the conspiracy deepens. It doesn't seem like that big of an ask, and it's a federal agency making a request. So why wouldn't this company just paint 3 of those smokestacks in alternating fashion with the fluorescent orange? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, there's been a lot of turmoil with this company over the years. They shut down in, I believe it was 2002, and announced that the workers, 650 approximately, would be laid off. Within a year, in 2003, they were gone. The company was shuttered. Well, that was when the company was owned by Simplot. Then a new mayor came in, and they gave the plant to the town across the river over in Burley, which made everybody kind of mad, and nobody had really understood why. So Burley invested money into the plant. I think it was about $54,000, and then they reinvested it as another potato processing plant, as you know, as Gem State Processing, which it was until now, as it's closed yet again. And I think it has to do over this crash. When you access it on Apple Maps, it lists it as permanently closed, and when you click the website, it says it doesn't exist anymore. So this is a really good picture. You see the first one is an agglomerate stack, and then you've got the next 6, and those are the ones that were requested to be painted fluorescent orange so a pilot could see, because that's where a lot of the steam is coming from. And you can see the river, the Snake River, and right over it is that Burley Airport. Her dad, Jim Bob Infinger, goes on to say, they've allowed this potato processing plant to continue to expand, and this chimney comes up and has a huge amount of steam. If the wind is blowing a certain direction, you fly right into this wall of steam. That was the case that morning. But if you access this website called catherinesreport.com, it talks about how she was flying the Gem airplane, which does seem a little strange with the name, but there was a witness on the ground there who actually said that the plane was in a nosedive before it hit that chimney, before it hit the smokestack. There were reports of light snow in the area. She went around a couple times. The air traffic controller at Burley Airport cleared her, but she said that she couldn't get a clear landing. So she went around the second time, and then that's when it happened. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, we had a plane crash in Marietta, Ohio, right across the Ohio River in Parkersburg, and you can see footage right here of the actual location it happened at the Pioneer dealership. And there's a lot of nameplay going on here with some people have looked into this as the numerology thing, and there could be something to it. Christians, we don't care about numerology, but, well, Satanists do, and if the deep state is in charge of these plane crashes, which it seems more and more likely that is the case, look at where it happened, Pike Street. That's named after Albert Pike, one of the famous Freemasons of yesteryear who was in the southern branch of the Scottish Rite of Freemasons. And I've done a video of the Scottish Rite building here in Parkersburg a few different times. We have a Pike Street in Parkersburg as well. Why did this plane happen to crash right here? Well, it also had one of the Blennerhassett brothers, who was one of the two brothers that owned the famous and historic Blennerhassett Hotel. So this was a big plane crash in 2022, and I did a video and reported on it when it happened that jet fuel was leaking from the fuselage from John Glenn International Airport back when it happened, and nobody seemed to know about it. No official media narrative came out to talk about it, but I had found that out in my research. So it was another conspiracy, it was another sabotage plane crash, and now we're seeing a bunch more here in 2025. So back to the bird influenza, avian influenza. Is it coming from fog? Is it coming from drones? Well, out in Indiana, they're convinced. And you got that one case of human transmission in Mercer County, Ohio. And my brother has seen multiple sightings of the drones out there. The farmers are convinced that they're spraying bird flu on their birds, on their animals. So stay tuned. We're going to have more on this developing story that the media doesn't seem like it wants to cover.